All righty. How about some Thursday COVID? It is December 16th, 2021. I'm Norm, along with Mike. Disclaimer, I'm under the weather, and Mike is always above the weather. He's just kind of high in the sky. This was supposed to be a pregame convo, Leafs Flames in Calgary, but that game has been postponed because of an outbreak. Oh boy, just when we thought we were escaping the grasps of COVID, Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say,
not so fast.
Just like Al Pacino in Godfather 3, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Like, but yeah, no, it's I mean, we have to start with this because it affects a lot of Leaf fans, a lot of sporting fans, a lot of season ticket holders potentially. That the rule that came down, or the edict that came down from the Ontario provincial government yesterday, that to reduce capacity by 50%. Now we haven't heard. I think they said that would stay in place until January 7th. I don't know where. I'm pretty sure I heard that date, and then they would evaluate from there. All I know is that it's gonna. I mean, okay, we know the overall thing here is to curb the amount of positive COVID cases. But, at this point, I think everybody has done what they can in terms of vaccinating and social distancing and everything else. And the fact now that we have to go back to where we were because of the variant and because of how communicable it is. I mean, I think a lot of people are just fed up and wish we could get past this. Unfortunately, that we can't. And when governments do what they do, they're doing it for a reason. But it's going to affect a lot of Leaf fans. I mean, whoever had tickets for some of those games, I assume they're going to be reimbursed. But it really sucks, and I feel for a lot of fans. And I just wish that through the holidays everybody stays healthy and we get through this and we're back to 100% capacity pretty soon.
Yeah, and also too, we're not in a hillbilly cavalier state where it's just COVID's a joke and do what you want and our freedoms are being suppressed because politics. This is a place where they're going to take precautions. Ask any parent with a kid going to school where there's a suspected outbreak. School boards it's not fun. It sucks. It sucks. So they'll reduce capacity to 50%. Any place that can hold over 1,000 people will have to follow those guidelines. So if the Leafs were getting 19,000 fans, I mean, you'd consider
10,000
or 9,500 fans at Scotiabank Arena. It's better than nothing. And let's hope with our heads down and, us taking precautions, we can get through this thing. So we don't have a game tonight to hype up. We can look back on the Leafs and Oilers from Edmonton. Another dud from the Oilers fans' perspective. And if you're looking for a clash of offensive titans, it didn't happen. I mean, Connor and Leon versus Austin Matthews and Tavares and Nylander. We were expecting fireworks and these offensive juggernauts to go at one another. But the Oilers, every time the Maple brothers pull into town or when they visit Toronto, just can't seem to rise to the occasion.
Well, I mean, recently, if you remember that 3-game set that they had last year with the North Division, the Leafs shut out the Oilers twice and then gave up 1 goal. And I don't believe Draisaitl or McDavid had a point in those 3 games. And then they were held pointless again against the Leafs on Tuesday. Had 5 shots on goal and were collective -4. So when you put them on the defensive and when you suffocate them, which I think is part of what the Leafs do, is just do not allow them to generate speed. Now, Draisaitl should have had a goal. He had a wide open net and missed. And McDavid, a couple times flashed. But in general, the Leafs have done a pretty good job against them. I mean, everybody remembers the McDavid undressing Morgan Riley in Toronto a few years ago. But in general, they've been able to hold them in check.
Are the Leafs in the Oilers' heads in number 97's head?
Say that again, Norm? Say that again.
Are the Leafs in the Oilers' heads, or more importantly, in number 97's head? Is he just psyched out?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's weird how, Rogers Place had half Leaf fans, and that has seemed to get into the Oilers' head. I don't know whether
they know that every single time the Leafs or the Habs come into town, that half of the fans are going to be supporting the opposition.
Right,
that's just a given.
Right, but the thing is, it's how teams react. As we both know, the Buffalo Sabres, when Leaf fans invade their arena, get pissed off and play their best hockey.
Yeah,
Edmonton, at least in this small window, really hasn't done that. So it seems to have a detrimental effect on them. So I mean, it could very well change down the line. Whether the Leafs are in McDavid's head, I don't know. I mean, he was a lifetime Leaf fan, and I don't know if that affects him or not. I don't think it does, but I do think that his play, they've done an effective job of limiting his chances, and they've in 4 straight games, Campbell, Hutchinson, Anderson last year, and then Campbell again this year. They've really received great goaltending. Their defense has been really good. And they get scoring from their big guys. I mean, Austin Matthews with 2 goals. I mean, Leon Draisaitl's got to be feeling the breeze on his back as the Matthews train is chugging along and catching him for the Rocket Richard. So, I mean, it was a good effort against Edmonton, because over the last 3 or 4 games, as we talked on the last convo, the Leafs had been slipping a little bit defensively and not been paying attention to detail. Well, they paid attention to detail in this game, even though Edmonton sort of dominated the second period. The Leafs got good penalty killing, played pretty decent defense, got goals when they needed, and then pulled away in the third period for a much-needed road victory.
So the Leafs top 10 in the PK, number 2 in the league, with the man advantage, and that's refreshing when we look back on most of last season. After a great start with the power play and scoring at will, the Leafs with the man advantage were non-existent in that carry through to the playoffs. And as much as we want to blame Matthews and Marner for that series defeat, if you put more biscuits in the basket when you have that crucial advantage, that could have helped them too. But I don't know if they've rectified everything, but whether this is smoke and mirrors, but this is really nice to see 1 for 3 on the power play against the Oilers, or the Oilanders. That's a new term, and we'll have to see the connections between those organizations historically, and come up with a moniker that is the Oilanders.
They played each other back to back in the 80s in the finals, so maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, that is true. The Islanders winning the first one, and then the Oilers, I think first of Gretzky's 4 with Edmonton. But yeah, they look good. Austin Matthews scoring on the power play and then scoring at even strength. 20, you mentioned that he's nipping at the heels of Draisaitl for the Rocket Richard. We went through some Ask Mike questions in community. YouTube.com/the Leafs Convo, click community. That's where I post a lot of stuff, polls, questions, pictures of OGs and their dogs and cats, and me sometimes flaunting Broncos and Raptors. But we have Rising Hedons. Now here's an interesting question. He thinks Matthews seems to be ready to be captain. Do you agree, Mike? Any chance they make the change, or will he forever be punished for his naughty moon in Scottsdale? Will the Leafs save the honor for his potential next contract? Why on earth would they take the C away from a wonderful citizen and a superstar player in John Tavares and give it to Austin Matthews? Seems really, really petty, and that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I don't think Austin Matthews views himself having to have the C in order to, punctuate or solidify his existence in Toronto, whether now or long term.
I'm sorry. I think this is just ultimately really. I mean, I'm sorry to our listener, but it's dumb. It's really dumb, because the only way that Austin Matthews becomes captain is after John Tavares either retires or departs Toronto. He's the leader. He's the elder statesman of the core 4. And I honestly think the next captain might be Morgan Riley, especially after Riley signs the 8-year contract extension, and he's well respected in the room, and he's the longest serving Leaf. But there's no issue with John Tavares' leadership, and there's no disputing Austin Matthews' place on this team as their best player. But you don't have to have your best player as the captain. Maybe down the line. I mean, we know that. Guys,
does the captain mean as much as it once did, or did it ever mean as much as people made it out to be?
It meant something in the day, in the 60s and the 70s when Darryl Sittler was captain, or, in the 80s and 90s when, when Doug Gilmour or Wendell Clark was captain. But I don't think it means as much now. Sidney Crosby was given the captaincy in Pittsburgh. I think he was 20 or 21. And at that point, maybe he wasn't ready to be the leader of that team, but he was the team, though, Mike. That's when the team came out of the gutter in 05, 06, when he was drafted out of Rimouski. It was his team. They were reconfiguring. They were rebuilding. It made sense in that circumstance. Yeah, there's not a need here for doing something like that. It's like, Tavares will be captain until he decides. Like, if he after his contract is up, if he decides to extend, he'll continue to be the captain. So I don't think that'll ever happen.
Yeah, Rising Heathens, we do appreciate the comment. Corey Parrish, the Leafs are playing exceptional, no doubt about it right now, but where does Toronto still need to improve at or before the deadline?
2 places. Defensively, I think we've seen over the last couple weeks with Dermott and Sandin hurt that the depth on the blue line is a concern. But the thing is, it's a concern because maybe players that were in the top 6 last year are not playing as well. Justin Hall has had a significant drop-off to the point that now Timothy Liljegren has taken his place with Jake Muzzin. And I think Liljegren has played well. I think he's earning himself a spot in the top 6. I think Sandin will be in the top 6, which could, that could displace somebody like Dermott on that bottom pairing. So I think there's a chance. Now, I think defensively, if they go out at the deadline and get a depth defenseman, or maybe somebody who can play the top 4. If it's somebody in the top 4, it's going to cost them a lot. If it's somebody who's just veteran depth, so they don't have to play Kristen's Rubens in a playoff situation, then they could go that way. I think the great need might be a left winger, depending on what they get out of Ilya Mikheyev after he comes back. I know that there is a situation where if they see somebody who's a left winger who can play in the top 6, that might be something that they go for, because they really offensively, even though Michael Bunting has done a really good job, I think he's a fit with Matthews. He's played well. But second line, Alex Kerfoot on that line has played well, but I think they really see him more in a checking role in the third line. That could be where they go. Now, it depends on how Mikheyev plays and how Kerfoot continues to play. There have been no complaints about Kerfoot playing with Tavares and Nylander, but it depends on how injuries come up. If I say they're going to make one move and that is the only move that they can make, I think it'll be for a defenseman.
This is the Convo, Norm, along with Mike, oakridgeford.com. Check it out for your new or pre-owned vehicle, your next one, and you can do the deal with me. I'll make sure to get you the best deal. We have a really nice collection of OGs and converts in the chat right now. Tony Bazzelli, is Montreal shopping Cherio, or is that bad gossip? Wouldn't that be something, a guy who is, I wouldn't say instrumental, but a part of the reason the Leafs were shut down, aside from the Leafs just not playing fully to their capability. But wouldn't that be ironic, a guy like that joining the Maple Leafs for a playoff run and putting his skills to use
it's
for the blue and white? Again, if you want to add some depth and some experience on a relatively inexperienced blue line, when you look at it collectively, maybe he's the kind of guy if available.
He's available. He's going to get traded. It's probably going to get Montreal a first-round pick, but I don't think the Leafs will be in on him simply because he's a left-hand shot defenseman, and they have Muzzin, Sandin, and Riley on the left side. I think if they're going to go for anything, it's going to be a righty, or somebody that can play the right side that could replace Hall. or if they want to move Liljegren down to the bottom pairing. I threw this name out simply because of the long-standing connection of Kyle Dubas to Sault Ste. Marie and players that have played for the Greyhounds, and a guy who I know will be available, who's on an expiring contract on a team that's definitely not making the playoffs, and that would be Colin Miller in Buffalo. And I don't think it would cost them a lot to get him. His salary is significant, and that Buffalo would probably have to retain salary. But I think down the line, closer to the deadline, that might be a guy that they go after. But if whoever they go after, it's going to be probably somebody who can play the right side. Sherratt's going to be so costly, and the Leafs I don't think are trading a first-round pick again for a rental. They'll trade prospects, they'll trade draft picks down going forward a year or two, but I don't think what they would have to pay to get Sherratt is not something that they're going to be willing to do.
And you wouldn't need to bring in an offensive-minded defenseman who's effervescent and free-flowing and is, in on the offensive play. You need somebody who can mind his ice, a bit of a stay-at-home kind of person. Someone's rugged and physical.
I mean, Sherratt is the right type of player. He's a physical defenseman, veteran, experienced. He made a run for a Stanley Cup, but he plays the left side, and that would mean either moving Muzzin to the right side, which he doesn't do. Sandin has played it in Sweden and a little bit with the Marlies, but that's not a fit. Dermott has played righty. You need a right side defenseman.
If you're getting real too, right? Colin M. Timetable for Marner's return.
He was placed on long-term injury, and I believe they said that the window for him to come back was close to Christmas. So they had to put him on LTIR to make room for Peter Mrazek's salary. I would probably say, depending, I haven't heard that there has not been an update in terms of him being on the ice or anything like that, but the Leafs are on the road right now, so most of the reporters are with the team or covering the team, and I don't know if he was on the ice at Ford Performance Center, it'd probably be nobody seeing it. But I would think that, because they have a game on the 23rd against the Blues, an afternoon game, and then the next game is in Columbus on the 27th. Knowing them, I think they'll be better safe than sorry for in the way the team is playing right now, and they're still winning without him. They're going to make sure that he's 100% before they bring him back. So I would say shoot for the 29th against the Penguins, or maybe on New Year's Day against Ottawa.
Yeah, that would certainly be nice to see number 16 back out there, because the Leafs need all hands on deck, and he is an offensive force. And while Austin Matthews is still scoring his goals, and Nylander's top 15 in points, and Tavares is doing well, he's part of that group of four that
the core
the Leafs are going to, win, lose, or draw with. Colin just followed that up with, should Justin Hall be a permanent odd man, D-man out? Now, my question to you is, has his regression thrown Kyle Dubas for a bit of a loop here? Were his plans that this guy was going to be someone that you could count on being a part of, maybe the top four, certainly, somebody who could pick up some ice time and be reliable?
Well, remember this. They protected 8 skaters, including 4 defensemen, to protect Justin Hall, because Muzzin and Hall were such a good pairing last year. And this year,
wow.
he started out badly, -7 in the first 7 games. He was benched. He came back. He played well. Now the last, I would say, 2 weeks, he's played badly again. He's been taken off the pairing with Muzzin, and now he's playing on the bottom pairing. The one game against Tampa Bay, he made a really bad play, vacating his position, because he was covering up for the rookie Rubens, and Rubens really didn't need his help, and he opened up another spot for a goal to be scored. So he's just not playing. He's just not playing well, and I think that his regression. I'll just say this: they're going to have to pay Liljegren and Sandin next year on bridge deals. Now, luckily they haven't, and for Kyle Dubas, they haven't put up the numbers that's going to give them a lot of leverage to demand big money. They may want to sign a Sandin to a longer deal to get a good number, but I think that they're going to be comfortable signing them to, say, 2-year bridge deals. But if they do that, they're going to have to clear out, one or both of Dermott making $1.5 million and Hall making $2 million. You have to subtract to be able to fit those guys under the cap, because also you remember they have to sign Jack Campbell, and they have to account for Morgan Riley's new deal. So for zero,
Alan Kwiatkowski, a little bit harsh there, zero intellect for Hall, but you wonder how a guy like this, who's been given leverage by the organization, shown support, playing with a Stanley Cup winner and Jake Muzzin, who you'd think would make you a better player, and all of a sudden has regressed. It's got to be psychological. I can't think he's resting on any laurels. He hasn't done shit to prove to suggest that he be given a lengthy period of time to iron up the kinks and find his game. I mean, he knew he was on borrowed time if he didn't progress. However, why is he not moving forward and getting better when all of the support around him lends to someone who can get better?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to analyze because it's inexplicable. I mean, 1 year he plays great and the next year he doesn't. I mean, it is a crisis. Is it a crisis of confidence? I mean, I don't know. All I know is that,
well, he better figure it out, man.
Right, and that's why I think if he doesn't figure it out, I mean, the one aspect that they do have is they do have a couple young defensemen who seem to be capable of moving into a greater role, and that allows Sandin and Liljegren to sort of move up and maybe play. If it's not Liljegren playing with Muzzin, maybe it's Sandin playing on his offside. I think Liljegren is in the small window has played pretty well with Muzzin, but you can't have Hall and Dermott playing on the bottom pairing making collectively $3.5 million. You need if you go out and sign a veteran making $750K and you see that around the league, then maybe that war. And here's my conspiracy theory, Norm. If you look at the list of UFAs, and nobody's looking except me, who's got no life. Nobody is looking at potentially who the Leafs sign next year as free agents. But I'm extrapolating. Okay, they've signed veteran guys like Spezza, Toronto boy. They bring in Kasha on a low contract after he's had health problems, and that's paid off. Bunting and Kampf on good deals. They need a right side defenseman next year. A Toronto kid who's made his money, who has aims of having a post-hockey career in media.
Yeah, PK Subban.
Named PK Subban. I can see PK Subban in blue and white signing a $750K deal. And, he's not the defenseman he was 5 or 6 years ago. So but on a bottom pairing, I'll take him.
Forget the pomp and circumstance around PK Subban in Toronto. Do you think it would make sense, right? And why not try it? Look, Mike, let's dial back to the offseason. Camp, Kasha, Bunting.
Home runs.
All signings that did not raise alarm or get people excited. Very unassuming moves, especially when you compare them to the off-season before, where you brought in Bogosian and I think Simmons and Joe and all these guys. Yeah. So it's interesting how things, the subtle moves, the moves that people weren't that excited about, considering the malaise and the discontentment, have actually really worked out. And I don't even know if Kyle Dubas figured that he'd be able to bear this type of fruit from the guys he brought in, but so far so good. Listen, D.A. Arulpuranam, I don't know if I got that right, but he wants to know how the cap situation is, because you have brought up the cap. So maybe we can just get at that and then we'll get out of here.
they're right up against it. I mean, they're using LTIR right now, and needless to say, if they make trades at the deadline, it's going to probably result in them either using LTIR based on who is hurt at the time, or if say they have $1 million in cap space, which that's being generous, they probably are going to have to acquire a player. They're probably going to have to trade that player through a third team. If the guy is making, if a player's making $4 million and the team retains 50%, then the player is a $2 million player. If they trade him through a third team and they retain 50% of the 50%, then he's making $1 million, and then the Leafs can afford him. That's what they did with Nick Foligno. That's probably what they're going to have to do if they add a significant player. So that's probably the way they're going to go, unless they're adding somebody who's on a veteran minimum contract. That's possible as well, but whatever direction they go, it's going to be a tight squeeze. And luckily they have Brandon Pridham, who's an excellent capologist, but whatever they do, it's going to probably necessitate the team that they're trading with retaining salary. And that just
interesting. It's interesting how much we're making of Justin Hall and his inability to grow right before our eyes as a complete defenseman. Our previous content on YouTube, and you can listen to it on the podcast platform of your choice. On all of these Leafs wins and losses on defense, the thumbnail asked the question, deck the hall. You like how I kind of bleed into Christmas with that, and then not physically deck Justin Hall, but
I was gonna say some Leaf fans would like to deck the hall.
Yeah, I know, and apparently a few Leaf fans want to strip John Tavares of the C and give it to Austin Matthews, the exalted one. I know it's fanboyism. We worship our guys and dislike the opposition. I mean, do you think that fans in Pittsburgh love 99 to any extent when Mario Lemieux was nipping at his heels as the best player and maybe was the best player at times in the world? No. Wayne Gretzky was a pariah, right? Even though he did nothing to suggest that, you should dislike him, right? But it's tribalism, and that's fine. I understand it. But within our own community, the Leaf fans are the worst for this, right? Liking one guy and disliking his teammate. I mean, look no further than the Marner versus Nylander wars that will always rage on to some extent. And
I have no idea what you're talking about, Norm, as somebody who ripped Corey Cross and Anders Eriksson and Aki Berg and Jurke.
Oh, you go for low-hanging fruit, Mike. Oh, wait a minute. You also couldn't stand Matt Sundin when he didn't waive his no trade, and I view him as one of my sports idols.
Yeah, so he's Jonas Höglund and
okay. Why are you bringing up Jonas Höglund in the same breath as Matt Sundin?
He was his line mate. That's what he was. A Swede.
Have you seen Matt Sundin's commercial for the gambling Leo, the gambling organization he pitches?
I can't say that I've had the pleasure.
So he says, I was the captain of one of the greatest teams in NHL history. I'm like, what the hell team was that?
Yeah.
That's what he says.
What, Djurgården? just kidding.
Hey, so you see, at I am Norman James. Can you guys follow me on Twitter? If you're on Twitter, follow me. I'm trying to get to 800 followers. I used to have like 10,000 followers when I worked on television, and then I didn't have access to my account anymore, and I've been kind of not really doing Twitter too much. But I find that when I interact with people on the platform, I'm able to kind of sell the product that is the Leafs Convo a little bit more, make some connections that way, and bring in new consumers of the project. Mike, anything else you want to add before we take off?
I think right now, we have to keep our fingers crossed that the COVID situation sort of plateaus. I do think, though, that with every day that this situation continues to go up, the possibility of the NHL going to the Olympics decreases. I don't know how.
Well, that's good.
Well, but thankfully, and I thought this was weak, and I don't know if this was behind the comment about taking the C away from Tavares, but last week John Tavares made comments about how he was, after the news that came out about him having questions regarding the Chinese quarantine of up to 5 weeks, being a new father and everything. And then people were like basically saying, oh, John Tavares doesn't care about Canada or whatever. I mean, give me, but then Connor McDavid had reservations and Alex Pietrangelo had reservations, and any player. Do you want to put yourself in the position of being at the whim of a communist dictatorship in China? And saying, okay, well, you're not going to be let go until you're 100% negative. Okay, no, I don't trust them. And honestly, I've been in favor of the NHL not going to the Olympics for a long time, and I think maybe the players are starting to get the hint that this is not a good idea.
You know what? It was fun back in the day. Remember? 98 Nagano, Gretzky on the bench for the shootout against, I believe it was Czech Republic.
Yep.
And then 02 Canada beating
US,
the United States to win the gold, and everybody freaking out. And then there was 2010 in Vancouver. I think it's lost a bit of its luster, and I obviously add the political elements, the COVID element. We just don't need it. What I'm hoping is that we can get through this season, and we hadn't even talked about it, Mike. There could be a temporary shutdown of play in the NHL. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's been bandied about, and you know that in New York they're considering something in order to kind of stem the tide, nip this thing in the bud. Do we want that? I don't know, but if it means saving the season and making sure the season is fulfilled to its completion, then I'm all for that. All that other shit be damned.
The number of postponed games I think is still under 10. But if they, with Calgary suspending games or postponing games because of their outbreak, it's going to get up there. If you got up to 20, 30 games that you have to make up, the only time that you have to make it up is during those 3 weeks during the supposed Olympic break. Will they? If the players decide to go, will they play the makeup games with with rosters not having their star players? That's possible. So I mean, the NHLPA and the NHL have to make a decision. They have to do it pretty quickly, and I hope they decide not to go to the Olympics.
Yeah, but we want people to go to youtube.com/the Leafs Convo. Go there regularly. Like the content, hit the bell icon for notifications, and why not subscribe to the podcast? You come back week in and week out, shoot us a subscription. It's absolutely free, and you just don't know what kind of great content you're going to encounter. Other than you will encounter fantastic content. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Mike on Twitter. Read his great stuff at hockeybuzz.com. If you're an OG or convert and you have Leafs Convo gear, shoot me a picture, whether it's email or Twitter, wherever, of you and your gear, and I don't know, being festive or something like that. I can add that to community on the channel, and we're going to be making some more gear. I promise that's going to be coming because I do get a lot of requests for combo stuff. Don't worry, we'll get to everybody, and we'll have a great time in doing so. Well, I'm going to go try to sit on the couch and relax and maybe feel better here over the next few hours and not get ready for tonight's Leafs Flames game. But there will be more hockey to come. For Mike, I'm Norm. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Talk to you soon.